Hello, my name is Sarah Payne and I'm a quilter. And I often get asked by people how you would use a standard ruler like this one with all of the angles marked on it to draft some of the common shapes that we use as quilters without having the fancy rulers, the 60-degree and the 45-degree diamonds, triangles, how we work out all these elements. So I'm going to show you in this quick video how we can use a ruler like this one, which has 45-degree lines marked on it and 60-degree lines on it, to mark up some of the more common shapes that we might want to use. Now, I'm using cardboard here. It's a thin cardboard. I'm using it just so that it's easy for you to see what I'm cutting, see the measurements and the angles. I can also draw on it, which is quite useful. I'm using a rotary cutter. Now, this is my standard rotary cutter that I use just for paper and card. Okay, I don't use this for fabric. When my blades are no longer sharp enough to cut fabric, or if I've been killing my blades cutting wooding, then I save them and they go into this rotary cutter. And then what I can do is I can use it for cutting out patterns and things. It lasts a little bit longer. Cutting paper and card does blunt your blade, but I get a bit more use out of it before it ends up in my sharps tin. So I'm going to show you with the aid of cardboard. You would just do this straight onto fabric, or if you want to be sure, you could do it onto card first and really get to sort of grips with it. So what I need first of all is I'm going to work with 2.5-inch wide pieces. This means that with most of the shapes, in fact all of the shapes, when they're sewn together, I'll end up with a 2-inch finished shape. So what I've got here is I've got my card. I've lined up the edge of the card with the 2.5-inch line on my ruler, and then I'm just going to run the rotary cutter along to cut our strip. So as I said, this rotary cutter is not the sharpest one because it has been used for lots of other things. It doesn't help that I picked up 2 pieces of card and tried to cut them both at the same time. So let's just double check. I'm nice and straight. Yes, I am. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just square up this end and make sure that's nice and straight. Now to do that, I want to line the edge of each one of my edges on a straight line on the ruler, just to make sure that everything is nice and squared off. Right, so let's start with the half square triangle. Now, half square triangle is a common shape. It's a ruler that a lot of us have in your stash, but if you don't have it, how do you do this? Or perhaps your ruler is not big enough. It's not the right size to work to create whatever shape it is you want. You might only have a 6-inch and you want an 8-inch half square triangle. How do you do it? Well, you might think that as this is 2.5 inches from there to there, all you do is measure 2.5 inches down there and do a diagonal line. That is not the case, because when we're doing our seam allowance, the bit that sticks out here is actually wider than 1/4 inch. So let me show you. If I draw on here, I've got my 1/4 inch line on my ruler. There we go. So I've got that nice and lined up, and I bring my pencil down. We've given ourselves a 1/4 inch line there. Now, if I then take my 45-degree angle, which is here, and I line that up with the edge, what I actually want to do is line up the 1/4 inch line here, so that the 1/4 inch line and the 45-degree line all go through the corner of my paper or my card. All right, I'm not lining up there, because that's incorrect. As I said, this is the 1/4 inch that way, but it won't be 1/4 inch that way. So I've got my 1/4 inch line here, and the point is basically just that section there where they meet. I'm going to put those in the corner, there we go, of my fabric or my card, and then get my rotary cutter and cut. And there we go, we've got a perfect half square triangle. But you can see in the corner that's bigger than 1/4 inch. And if I just take my pen again, just to reassure you, and I draw my 1/4 inch So it's 1/4 inch that way. You can see when it comes up into that corner, that is slightly larger than 1/4 inch. So there's 1/4 inch. This is where we're sitting. Okay, so that's what you do to get a half square triangle, and it means you can draft a half square triangle of any size you like. So the next thing we're going to look at is to do a diamond. All right, so we've already got this lovely 45-degree diamond on there, but I could go from the other end. Let's go from the other end. And that's already square, so I'm happy with that. So how do I do that first 45-degree piece? Well, I rotate my 45-degree line, so it's sitting on the edge of my card, like that. All right, and then we're going to whiz along there. And there's our first 45-degree piece. Now again, this is 2.5 inches from here to here. What I don't want to do is measure 2.5 inches up here and then draw, because I won't actually get a diamond. What I get is a trapezoid, because this measurement here is what we want to come along this edge. If we were just to take this one, which is the one we already know, then it wouldn't come out right. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure. So that takes me from the very top here to 3.5 and midway between 3.6. You see here? 3 and 5/8. So it's 3 and 4, it's 3 and 4 and 9/18. Okay, so I'm thinking of it in terms of it's if I come up here, we do 3.5. I'm going to line that up there. And what I'm looking at, that's 3.5 and then halfway between the next two. And that's the end. I'm just going to mark that end. Hang on, let me just double check that. That's 3.5 actually. I was just looking at that, it looked a bit odd. Right, so 3.5. Try and be accurate. And then what I'm going to do now is go back to my 45-degree line, have the 45-degree line across the top of my paper, like that. And I'm going to just, because this is 45 degrees here, this line should also line up with the bottom of that diamond there. And I'm just going to run through that bit that I measured. And there we go, we've got a perfectly drafted 3.5 inch, perfectly drafted 12-inch wide, 2-inch wide, goodness me. Because if we were to draw our seam allowances, you would see the seam allowance. And when we're talking about the measurements of a diamond, they're always talking about, they're not talking about this measurement, they're talking about straight across. So there we go, that piece straight across from one side to the other is 2 inches. So there you go, you've got your 45-degree diamond. So we've got our 45-degree triangle. So we've done those two shapes with our 45-degree line. Now let's move on to the 60-degree line. So with that, you might want to do a 60-degree diamond. So I'm going to rotate the ruler and I want to do my 60-degree. Hang on, I want to line my 60-degree. This piece isn't long enough. Let's do another piece. It's just easier sometimes. Let's measure, check that that is 2.5. Yep. So if I line up a 60-degree line here, I could line it up against the bottom. I could line it up against the top of my row. It's still, this angle is still going to be 60 degrees. So let's take 60 degree. There we go. And again, with the same way with the diamond, when we're talking about measurements, they generally talk along that direction without taking into consideration this top edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure my top edge again. Hang on. It is with a 45-degree line up there, the line's at my other end. So I'm going to do it just like this. And it's actually 2 7/8. Okay, so I've got my 2 7/8 measurement that way. And I'm going to come along here and do 2 7/8. All right, and I could actually, if I wanted to be doubly sure, do 2 7/8 here and line those up. But we want to use the ruler to make sure that we've still got a lovely 60-degree line. So I'm lining up my ruler. There's the 60-degree. It goes onto the edge of my strip of card in this case, and then cut along there again, and I've got my 60-degree shape. So if I want to, I can draw in the seam allowances here just to show you. There we go, there's our 60-degree, and from one side to the other, if we're doing it straight, let's line that up, will be 2 inches. Okay, give or take. I think I might not have been that accurate with my line drawing, but that will finish at 2 inches when we put that together. And then finally, let's look. So we've done, that's a 60-degree. Take those out of the way, and let's look at a 60-degree triangle. So this is an equilateral triangle. So again, I'm going to come here, I'm going to get my 60-degree line. Now I've got two. One is going that way and the other one's going that way. So I can cut that way by lining up against the bottom here. A little bit. Okay, so I can cut up that way by using that line there, or I can rotate it that way and cut it up that way, which is what I'm going to do. I'm actually just going to cut this. Right, so again, we want to look with an equilateral triangle. If you've got an equilateral triangle, you will notice that they often have a flat top on them for the same reason that your half square triangle does. So let's take our pencil and just draw some of the lines along here. So there's two things you can do. One is you can do exactly what we did before, which is take this measurement and travel along that way and then come back up to your point. Or you can take your 60-degree line, which again comes to here, like this. But what you want to do is take that 60-degree line and pop that so that the 60-degree line here and your seam allowance line are right in the corner. So with the 45-degree angle, it goes through here because that is a 45-degree. With this one, we have, if I just bring that up, just show you that one. Just takes a moment to, you can see that it actually intersects slightly to the right here. Okay, so that's the point that we want to line up on the corner of our cut shape. So line that up. So this is going along the 60-degree line. We've got our intersection, and then we cut down that side, and we now have our equilateral triangle. So there you go. That is cutting with those lines there. It takes a little bit of thought because you have to remember which lines to match up with what, but we've done a 45-degree diamond, we have done a 60-degree diamond, we have done a half square triangle or a 45-degree triangle, and we have done an equilateral or a 60-degree triangle. So all of those you can actually get from your ruler. Just remember to pay attention to the seam allowances, because obviously this seam allowance across here is wider than 1/4 inch. And also make sure that when you're drafting your diamonds that it's this measurement that you come along that edge, not your 2.5, because you'll end up with a slightly odd shape that won't be a pure diamond. So I hope that you've actually found that of some use, and that you'll have a little play with your rulers that have those angles on, because it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, because you know you're having to line up things that you don't normally line up with, but it means that you don't have to worry about whether you've got all of those extra rulers to hand. So thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye.